Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today's Thursday and it's January the 13th, 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to say welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so very frequently here on the YouTube streets, so you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want to tell you, I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. And our story today takes us back to the city of Fayetteville here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, North Carolina off-duty deputy shoots and kills unarmed black man. This is an update. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. This has been a very traumatic week for many in our community, as some of our neighbors were faced with the second death of an African-American male gunned down on the streets of Fayetteville, and calls for justice are being echoed throughout this community. This video is an update to the initial one I posted on Monday, where I talked about the young man, Jason Walker, shot 4 times by an off-duty deputy. Witnesses say the deputy hit the man with his vehicle, and as the victim fell on his truck, that the deputy shot and killed him. They say he first fired from inside the truck, then he got out, fired several more shots into the injured victim before calling the police itself. Witnesses say the deputy tried to make them leave the scene, saying that he was a sheriff, but they refused. One witness rushed to offer aid to the victim, while her companion began videotaping what was taking place. So I want to begin by telling you just a little bit more about the victim. 37-year-old Jason Walker, a single father of a young son. Last Saturday, Jason was on his way home when he was shot and killed by an off-duty deputy assigned to the Fayetteville Police Department, and the killing occurred right in his home neighborhood. Family and friends described Jason as a happy, polite, kind, and soft-spoken young man who was always a very hard worker. Most of all, they described him as an excellent father who loved his son and his family dearly. He had just received word that he was hired for a second job and scheduled to start on that job this coming Monday, but unfortunately it was his father who would identify him as he lay dying on that Fayetteville street. Now, this incident took place on January the 8th, and the name of the deputy was not released. But on January the 10th, the Cumberland County Sheriff issued a press release in which he identified the deputy responsible for the shooting as Jeffrey Hash, a lieutenant who had been with the agency since 2005 and currently assigned to the civil section of the department. The sheriff stated that Hash was on paid administrative leave while an internal review is being conducted. And here are some of the responses from the citizens of Fayetteville in response to the sheriff posting that information. I just took some of the comments off, but some of them were repeated over and over again. One individual said, your deputy shot this man in the back 4 times and he's on the couch getting paid, and there's a question mark. And another one said, let's be honest, if this officer was of another race, he wouldn't have been getting paid on leave. This family needs justice. And 41 people agreed with that. Another one said he should be in jail, not on leave. Jason can't go home to see his family. Why should he? There were several different comments with the same sentiment. Another one said, we need justice and he shouldn't be paid on administrative leave. How does this look? He hit the man with his vehicle, then trying to play it off like he's the victim. But there is one comment that I really supported, and based on what I saw from a video, and this comment says, how about the responding officers who offered no aid to the victim? And there's a question mark. And I have similar concerns about that, because I saw the video, like hundreds, maybe thousands of people have seen that video, and what I saw, the officers did not go over there to render aid to that dying victim. So that's a question that I have as well. And as the people were marching for justice and demanding transparency, the distrust for the police had been growing, and some residents have begun to question just how objective the media really is as well in covering this event. We watched as they retracted their initial reporting on the event, and from that moment, they covered very little, and it seemed as if what they provided was one-sided reporting. In fact, newspapers internationally and in other states were covering this case more than those newspapers right here in Fayetteville. So we wondered whether censorship of the media was taking place behind the scenes. And then there were those comments by the chief of police that left many residents shaking their heads. The most positive comments came from the mayor. He's the mayor of Fayetteville, who gave an interview in which he called for calm during the protest. He did not give any personal opinions, but what he did say, it's okay to protest, keep it calm, but that also allowed the system to run its course. Now, the 911 call made by that deputy was eventually released, and as the deputy is talking, a passerby and witness to the shooting was videotaping what he was saying. In fact, he was videotaping the entire incident. You can hear the officer saying that Walker jumped on his truck and was beating on it, and he shot him. The operator asked him if Walker had a weapon, and he said no, but he would not tell her where he shot him, and she asked him. He suggested that Walker was dead. He also said there was a mob forming, and we are hearing him say that as we're looking at the video, and we knew there was no mob. He was not telling the truth. Now, this man here with his shirt off was saying out loud, there's no blank, blank, blank explicit mob. He was cursing. He said, there's no mob. I want to focus on this person with his shirt off, because he took his shirt off to give to the woman who was rendering aid, who was a witness to the shooting. And I want to spend some time with him and tell you what he had to say. His name is Cedric Whitlock. I found out he is a military veteran, and he said he did not see the shooting but came out when he heard the shots. He said he saw the deputy standing over the body of Jason Lewis with his gun in his hand and then placing the pistol back to his hip. In the video, you can see he remained on the scene until the ambulance arrived, and he took his shirt off and gave it to the woman who actually went over and administered aid. In the video, you can see Jason is lying almost to the back of the truck near the wheel. And at no time did you ever see the deputy go close to the victim and did not assist. He said, and we're talking about Cedric Whitlock, he said he was surprised when the deputy told the 911 operator the situation was getting hostile because that was not true. And that remark, he said, offended him, because I also heard on the video when the deputy said something about it's getting to be a mob, and Mr. Whitlock said there ain't no effing mob, something to that effect. And Whitlock said he was offended because being an African-American male who's already perceived as a threat, to tell that to the police was just trying to put them in a dangerous position. He said the most compelling part of what took place was when Mr. Walker's father came to the scene and identified the victim as his son. He said it took him back to a place 1 year ago because he also lost his son to gun violence. So he stood there because he wanted to make sure that he was an eyewitness to what was taking place. And now I want to provide you excerpts from an interview from the woman in black who went and administered aid to the dying victim. Her name is Elizabeth Hicks, and she has a background in healthcare, but she's not currently practicing. She said she saw the entire event because she was traveling behind the deputy. So there was a witness. Regardless of what everyone said, there was a witness. Hicks said Walker was walking across the street when the truck hit him and he fell on the hood of the truck. She said the deputy first shot at him from inside of the truck. Then the deputy got out, and as Jason was on the floor getting up and tried to walk away, the deputy shot him several more times. She said what she saw was cold and cruel. I'm not going to cover everything in the video because she said she never told anyone she was a trauma nurse and that nobody ever asked her if she was a nurse, period. But you could hear the deputy telling the 911 operator a trauma nurse was providing aid. She said that was all made up. She never told anybody that because nobody ever asked her anything about who she was. In fact, she said after the victim was shot, the deputy wanted her and her partner to leave the scene, and she refused, choosing instead to rush to and provide aid to the victim. Unfortunately, Jason Walker took his last breath while receiving some measure of comfort from that stranger. She also stated the accounts presented by the chief of the police were not true. She said not one of those police officers provided assistance in caring for that injured Jason Walker. Not one of them came to help her when they arrived on the scene. When the police came, they stood by the deputy who did the shooting and paid no attention to the dying victim on the ground. We saw it. We saw it on the video, so it's really not disputed. And that's all I'm going to say right now because Elizabeth and her family has been threatened, and that's kind of sad. You have a witness, an eyewitness to a murder, and her family is being threatened simply because she's speaking out. But at the same time, she has a lawyer, and I think any further comment should come from her lawyer. So I will follow up in the future after they had made public statements. So now let's return to the comments made by the chief of police that has placed her at odds with the community and has created a perception of a cover-up by the police. First, the chief said there were no witnesses. We know there were no true. We know it's not true. And you can tell from the video that Elizabeth Hicks was not being silent because after the paramedics arrived, Elizabeth Hicks could be seen yelling at the deputy who did the shooting. And she said something to him like, but you have a car. I guess she was asking him why you shot the man. And he said, but he had to protect his family. And she said, but you have a car. And then one of the police officers escorted her away. I wonder who told the chief there were no witnesses. Just asking. Secondly, the chief when questioned, stated the deputies did offer aid but allowed the trauma nurse to essentially take the lead. Again, who told them there was a trauma nurse? In the video after the shooting, the video shows what happened when the officers arrived. None of them was seen going to that woman and offering any type of assistance. And Elizabeth Hicks clearly stated that none of them offered any type of aid to her as she was caring for that dying victim. I know the chief has suggested that she wanted the police car cameras to be videos to be released to the public. It's not going to make any difference. We saw the video. They didn't go over there and offer any help. They stayed with the deputy. They did not go over to see what was happening. Nobody went over till the paramedics showed up. And then the chief said the black box for the truck was analyzed and there was no evidence that the truck hit the victim. That statement has made her look pretty foolish. To introduce such a statement without having the facts was really unforgivable. The experts have weighed in, and when asked what are the chances of a truck hitting a human and that information being recorded on the black box, the experts stated the chances are little to none. So it appears that narrative was intended to paint a false picture when she did not have the facts. She should not have even mentioned that because people started looking at her in a kind of suspect kind of way. And that's pretty sad. Yeah, it is pretty sad, I might say, especially coming from the chief of police when her agency is not even investigating the case. So where do we go from here? There are continued protests and continued calls for justice for Jason Walker and his family, continued calls for transparency from the Fayetteville Police Department, calls for the police deputy who shot Jason Walker to be charged with murder, and calls for changes to the police and changes to how the police responds to victims when other police officers are involved. In the meantime, the Walker family is being represented by renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump. He will be in Fayetteville tonight to meet with the family and to hold a press conference. I'll bring you a summary of that in my next video. I already mentioned that Elizabeth Hicks also has an attorney, but right now he has not been identified. But I plan to stay on top of this case, and anything that's presented in the media, anything that's newsworthy, I'll be sure to bring it to you right here. There were concerns that the rest of the world would not know what's going on in Fayetteville. I'll do my part to make sure they do. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on this notification bell right here, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.